All right, guys, what's up? How's everybody doing this Wednesday night? We're excited to be bringing the Bass 365 live cast back. We got a couple special guests tonight. One of them's running a little late. I guess I gave him the wrong time. We got a bit confused on Central Time versus Eastern Time. But man, I've had a lot of requests to bring the live cast back. We've been on a pretty rigorous tournament schedule so far this year, but we got one left, and right now I'm excited to bring Spencer Shuffield onto the stream. What's up, Spencer?
Hey man, what's up?
How you doing, man?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Uh, our special guest host is running a little bit late. I think I told him the wrong time, but we'll get this figured out and have a good time with it.
Oh yeah.
Um, Man, you're coming off a huge win uh, up on the St. Lawrence. Can you kind of just give the viewers a little bit of thought on how that tournament went down? I know you were like super confident going into it, and maybe just talk a little bit about some of the baits you used and how you approached the St. Lawrence.
Yeah, I caught everything on a drop shot and a Ned rig. Exclusively flatworm on the drop shot and a finesse TRD, Z-Man finesse TRD on the Ned rig, 3/8 ounce Ned rig, Woo tungsten uh, Ned head, and a size 2 drop shot, split shot hook, Gamakatsu, and a half-ounce arc tungsten teardrop weight. That's what I used. The 8-pound Yozuri T7 fluorocarbon, the Yozuri 15-pound super braid and high vis yellow, and I was using the 7.2 and 7.4 Phoenix M1 medium action spinning rod, and that was my setup for the entire week. Really, my setup most of the time I'm on them bodies of water that's full of smallmouth, other than throwing the Yozuri 110 deep a lot. If the conditions are perfect for it, I'll throw it a lot up there over them grass flats as well. But going into that tournament, I knew I was going to have to be down on that lower end of the river, down there closer to the lake to have a shot to win. So that's where I focused my 2 days of practice, was down there around the Clayton area. And the second day is when I kind of found that area that I ended up winning it out of. I didn't realize it was going to be that good. I really didn't. I'd caught 7 or 8 fish in there in probably about a 20, 25-minute span in practice, and they were all that 360 to 420. I was weighing them. They were just, on average 4 pounders. And, there on that place, you've got to have about a 4.5 pound average to win a tournament. So it was kind of one of them deals. I never saw a big one in practice there. Probably could have caught a big one or two, no doubt, because I ended up catching several big ones there in the tournament. But after I caught 7 or 8, I was like, that's enough. I'll just keep this spot in the back of the pocket in case I absolutely need a bail me out place. And turned out it was the winning spot. So it was pretty cool to roll up there the second day of the tournament, catch a couple 5.5 pounders. Completely changed the ball game for me on that little area right there, seeing that there was big ones there.
Right, and Spencer, I saw a video the other day, a Yozuri video of you using the Garmin Live Scope, and man, that stuff's just become a game changer in the fishing world. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
are catching fish that we all just used to kind of scratch our heads and be like, "Where'd all the big ones go?" Well, now you've been able to find them. Maybe if
Mhm.
you could talk a little bit about how you got so good at it. I know you spend a lot of time using it, and maybe share a few tips on becoming a better live scoper.
Well, it's just one of them deals, with live scope. You've got to spend a lot of time on the water, and man, I've been asked that question so much since I won that tournament. you know, about live scope and what's the tricks to it. And I mean, sure, there's some settings and things like that, possibly. I mean, we all have our deal. I can't. There is no one particular setting. I mean, I'm changing mine constantly throughout the day, depending on sun versus clouds, clarity of the water, the depth of fish are in, the kind of bottom I'm fishing. Just so much to it. I've had it for, let's see, just over 3 years now, and I have thrown at hundreds and hundreds of thousands of fish using live scope to figure out, what size they are, what species they are, how to read their body language in order if it's catchable fish or not. Uh, it goes back to, even with that piece of equipment, it all goes back to time on the water. Uh, there's just no substitution for it. It's all about time on the water. How much time are you willing to dedicate to the stuff that you're using? And I've just dedicated so much time to the live scope. It's just my favorite way to catch them. I mean, I've only had it for 3 years, and it's like a topwater bite on steroids to me. I literally watch my bait. I can see it hit the water. I see the fish react. I watch her swim over to it the whole time, anticipating that bite, and then watching the fish come up after you hook. I mean, it's just such an amazing thing to be able to see it all unfold in a matter of 2 to 10 seconds, and I mean, it's the best thing to me. I mean, it's unreal catching them using it. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with catching them using it. But like I tell everybody, I mean, I don't care. I hope, they're never going to, just because of that. Those companies pump in so much money into the fishing industry. I mean, they really are the backbone of the sport. The Garmin, Humminbird, Lowrance. I mean, all those companies are excellent. But, uh, at the end of the day, I wouldn't care if they gave us a canoe and a paddle. I'm going to be out there fishing, giving it 110% one way or another.
All right, Spencer. I think Terry's trying to get in on the call here, so maybe just talk a little bit about how you got to where you're at. I know it's all time on the water, and I do have one question I'd like for you to talk about. We both work with Monster Marine lithium batteries, and I've heard guys say that the lithium batteries actually improve the screen clarity. Have you noticed that at all? And I'm gonna hop off here for a minute and try to get Terry on while you answer that.
Yeah, I would be lying if I told you one way or another. I'm not going to say it doesn't help, but I'm not going to say it does, because I've had lithiums now for 2 years, and my screen's very, very clear. But I can't say that that's because I'm running lithiums. Um, so I'd kind of be lying if I said yes. It's I don't see how it could hurt. The most important thing to me with having lithiums is how I use live scope, and that's covering tons and tons of water in a day's time in practice, tournament. I keep my trolling motor on 100% nearly all the time. Uh, and being able to have the ability to do that and have the confidence in a battery that is going to be able to hold up to that kind of pressure, and you can run from daylight to dark, uh, and not worried about it failing you. That's the main thing for me on the lithiums. I'm running 236-volt Monster Marine 50 amp hours in parallel, and I got two 12-volt lithium 100 amp hour Monster Marine batteries in parallel for my starting battery. That's what my starting batteries is the 12 volts in parallel. That's got my units are hooked up to those, my live wells, all my accessories, and then my trolling motor batteries are exclusively for my trolling motors. So that's my setup. I couldn't say on the picture. Seems like lithium would be a little bit of a cleaner power, maybe. Um, I'm not the most mechanically inclined guy, so I don't know on that sense of it, but seems like it would just be a little bit cleaner. It holds its voltage way better than it seems like lead acid batteries ever did.
All right, so can you hear me, Spencer?
Yep, I hear you.
All right, so I got just sent Terry the link to get on here. He should be here shortly. Um, Before he joins us, I do have one other question related to the forward-facing sonar stuff. Um, when is it going to be enough, or when is it going to be too much when you're really not fishing for them anymore? Do you ever see that happening? What's the next step after this forward-facing sonar?
No, I don't. I mean, forward facing sonar is never going away. I mean, it's no different than side scan. I mean, I remember when that came out, guys were, oh, that's not fair. And then you can see everything 150 feet out left or out of the butt. Look, we don't even talk about side scan hardly anymore now. It's all on forward facing sonar. Uh, it has arrived and it's here to stay, period. Uh, they might decrease creel limits on something like crappie. I can see where it could start to affect certain lakes for crappie fishing. I mean, I do a lot of crappie guiding in the winter, and I can't tell you the thousands upon thousands that we've caught using live scope, and I've cleaned for clients, and they've taken home. And man, the places that I was catching them on 3 years ago using live scope, the schools are just as big or bigger now than they were when we first started. I mean, I don't see any decline in fish populations at all. On an absolute amazing day using live scope bass fishing, if I'm catching 60 to 75% of what I'm throwing at, I'm still catching such a small fraction of what I see swimming around. There's so many more fish in our lakes than we ever thought imaginable. Um, I just I mean, if the only way something like that can hurt the sport is if people abuse it and take advantage of keeping fish. I only keep crappie, and I never keep them when I'm supposed to. I only keep them when I'm going to cook a mess that night or something. I mean, I'll go out if I'm going to cook crappie on a Tuesday night. I'll go out Tuesday morning, get 8 or 10. That's all it takes to feed me, my wife, and 3 kids. If I have some friends coming over, I'll keep 15. And I only do that maybe twice a month. I don't abuse it. Now, guys that
Right.
are going to go out there and abuse that, then yeah, it might make a difference on crappie. I don't know a lot of people that keep bass personally. Uh, Most people, I mean, bass is one of them deals now where it's catch and release mainly. I feel like 95% of the fishermen that bass fish, they catch them, they throw them back. I just feel like we've gotten really good at that. Um, and it's really educated them too because a lot of fish you're throwing back now, and so they're getting tougher to catch because they're more educated. Crappie, when they get caught, they're going home. I mean, and they're easy to catch because usually when you catch a crappie, it's just the first time probably being caught. I mean, I guess some lakes have got them 10-inch length limits. We don't have any length limits around here, but I don't ever keep anything under probably 11 or 12 inches long, anyways, because that's the best eating ones. But um, I don't think, I mean, I don't know what they could come out with next. I don't see how it could get any better, but live scope's not hurting anything at all,
All right. I
in
got you.
my
Well,
opinion.
I'm gonna stop you right here because I'm pretty excited to introduce this next young fellow on here, and the show is really going to get interesting from here on out. So, without holding it any longer, here he is, the man himself. I think Terry Brown. What's happening, Terry? Uh oh. Can you hear us, Terry?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
I
Hello?
hear you.
You
I
hear me
hear you.
now?
I hear you.
Look at you. You look like you're sitting in a king's chair, man. Look at
Yeah,
you.
I thought I
You,
was
look
going to have to
like
carry
you
this
got to
stuff.
have a crown on when you sit in a chair like that.
Yeah,
Look at
I
that deal.
thought I was going to be asking myself questions here in a minute.
No, heck no. This is funny. Where you live, Central Time Zone, right?
I do. Yes,
What
sir.
time is it in Central Time Zone?
I don't know. Probably 6:20 or so.
You're right. When Ricky and I spoke, he said 7. So I'm just gingerly heading to the office, and then I get a note,
Yeah.
4 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm, what the heck? What are we doing here? How you been doing,
Yeah.
man? How you been?
Doing good. I've been good. You?
I've been perfect. Your dad and I have a long and storied relationship, and I'm sure he's told you about that. But you know what I used to call him?
What's that?
Barry White.
Barry
You
White.
know the old soul singer Barry White that he wore that neck handkerchiefs and stuff. You'll have to look it up afterwards. But your dad
Yeah.
has that deep, real deep, resonating voice. So I
Yeah.
called him Barry White, and he knew he could be clear across the room, and I'd, hey, Barry, and he'd turn around and look because he knew it was me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's fun. You were about knee high to a grasshopper back in those days. You were a little bitty guy,
Yep.
and your dad and I had a lot of fun together and talked a lot. And when he was trying to win classics and some of that, I was out chasing this same thing I'm chasing now. But it's awful nice to see a Shuffield with a championship. I will tell you that. I'm sure your dad says the same thing to you.
Yeah, it was good to get that in the family for sure. I know he worked a long time to try and accomplish that and wasn't able to, so that definitely feels good for sure. He was happy.
You've got everybody that is a son of a dad who did something. They usually don't want to follow their dad's footprints. They just don't want to do that. And
Yep.
what ends up happening is you're trying to cut your own path, right? But your dad allowed you to be able to be and have the passion and love you do right now for this sport. So he gets a little bit of that. He gets a little bit of that gusto from your victory, I'm sure. And he had a really good career. I mean, a really good career. I followed him even when he was driving a truck. He and I talked when he's on the road sometimes. And I know when you were just a little guy without a beard, all right, he knew you were going to be something special. He would tell me, this kid's got something special. And to see that $200,000 win has got to be so cool. And then to qualify for the BPT is even cooler.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm most excited about. I mean, obviously the championship win is better than all of it, but man, getting that first win was incredibly hard. I I don't know why. I mean, I'm not saying it in a bad way. You would think. I mean, I don't know. I was three, and let's just say 7, 21, 40, 42, 43 tournaments out of the front of the boat to win one. That don't sound like a lot, but in a 7-year period, that's a lot. It seems like, Um, it really was starting to kind of get on me because I mean every year I was getting a couple top tens, finishing second, third, and like man, it was just like there was always something so little that would keep me from getting that win, and it was kind of just getting one of them points like, golly, is this ever going to happen? And man, I was glad to finally get it done. Now, as far as BPT, I cannot wait to get over there. That was my number one goal coming into this year was to qualify for the Bass Pro Tour. Um, that is just my format. I mean, I cannot wait to fish that format. Um, I just that's kind of the way I've always fished is for the population of fish versus necessarily. I don't go to a lake and try and catch the biggest ones in there. I go and try and figure out the population and the quality. That's just kind of the way I've always fished. So. I'm really looking forward to getting next year started.
Well, you had a lot of success out of the back of the boat too. And I think sometimes we miss that because now it's all pro in the front and no co-anglers and all that kind of stuff. Your dad will tell you, I will tell you that fishing with a guy like you in a boat where both of us are on the front deck really sucks because
Hmm.
you're fighting for fish really. And now that's all kind of changed a little bit, but you had so much success out of the back of the boat that did that help you moving forward to be in the front of the boat then? Did you think that back of the boat experience did?
Well, it did because I mean, I had to learn how to catch fish out of the back of the boat from a very early age, just because my dad fished professionally. So it wasn't like I was fishing against or fishing behind a lousy fisherman by any means.
Right.
But my dad really all he did was it was a jig, a rattle trap, or a spinnerbait growing up. Every now and then we'd mix a top water in. Uh, that was the deal. I mean, that's just all we threw, and mainly because there at home, that was what you had to throw to win any tournaments that you fished and just catch fish in general because we had a lot of deep grass and stuff like that. Uh, so when I got out there on the front of or got out there and started fishing co-angler, I got to see a lot of different varieties of fishing, especially on the finesse end of it. I drew, I think, about every guy from the West Coast, the Gabe Boulevard, the Justin Kerr, Tim Klinger, all of them guys. I drew them and learned a lot with some of those guys. And then my second year as a co-angler, which is my best buddy now, he had moved out to Arkansas from California. And I was introduced to him, and he had lived out there his entire life fishing the Clear Lake, Lake Shasta, all of them lakes. That lake where that world record was caught, but the guy had snagged it or whatever. He fished that lake all the time. So he taught me a lot as well on the finesse end of it. Um, and I just fell in love with that type of fishing. I mean, and so that last year as a co-angler was when they gave away that fully rigged Ranger boat for Angler of the Year. And I set out that year. I knew I needed to win that boat so I could go to the pro. I was tired of fishing in the back. I felt like I'd learned as much as I could, proven everything I needed to prove from the back of the boat. Um, and I was ready to go to the front. So I ended up winning the co-angler of the year that year, got the boat, sold it for I think $38,000, and used that for my entry fees the following year, and the rest is history pretty much. It's been a grind ever since out there, but man, it's been totally worth it.
Well, talk to me. I've read just about everything I could read preparing for this, and plus I've known you when you were little, but your dad more. But let's talk about searching for that lone bass that's out there versus schools of fish. And I know in Illinois, a school of fish is two. So I don't have the luxury of having a lot of places where we can go catch a school. Hamilton's not known as the mecca of tons of fish either. So, and that's right where you live. But tell me about kind of how you look away from a wolf pack to maybe a single fish and some of that. Well, how's your strategy work for that with finesse?
Are you talking about using live scope with that,
Yes,
or?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Uh, well, I mean, usually your single fish are going to tend to be more suspended. It seems like when I'm doing that. Um, Not always with smallmouth. A lot of those smallmouth I was catching up at St. Lawrence, they were singled out, but they were down on bottom, 2 or 3 foot up off the bottom. But usually the singles are they're hunting. I mean, they are looking for something to eat. They're up roaming. They're covering ground. They're out hunting, and so usually when you catch them singles like that, they're usually pretty guaranteed to bite if you're throwing something similar to what they're looking for or they've been feeding on. Uh, I mean, they're usually always going to be relating to a drop or a point of some sort. Uh, it seems like your schools of fish are usually around the cover. They're usually around the brush, directly on the very tip of a point, around some brush or a standing tree or a significant sharp drop. But those singles, a lot of times, they'll be up on the flattest part of it, or they'll just be aimlessly swimming around on the outskirts of the schools. Uh, I mean, I don't ever go to a place and just think, oh, we're hunting down singles, unless I've had experience there before doing that, knowing that that's a real thing. That's usually something that always develops during practice for me. I mean, when I show up to a lake, I put the troll motor in the water and I take off looking, and you find out pretty quick, am I going to be throwing at numbers or am I going to be throwing at one? Usually smallmouth fisheries like the St. Lawrence or Lake Ontario, it's a mixture of both. Your biggest ones are usually by themselves, but your bigger quality ones are usually in a pack of 4 to 7. So, and they're usually relating to a rock pile or something like that. Largemouth, on the other hand, I mean, that live scope's really a major deal for spots and smallmouth. That's where it really is a big time factor, because those fish are always up roaming, moving. The largemouth, it's more of a using it to fish the structure that they're holding on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Grass edges, which way's the brush pile, where's the drop, kind of that sort of a deal. It's more using the live scope to know where your next cast needs to be instead of what's the next fish I need to be throwing at. The only exception to that I found is Florida and Texas. Florida and Texas, it's like they're largemouth that think they're smallmouth or something. I mean, they're out roaming around aimlessly, and they always go to your stuff and bite it. Usually, most time. Here around in my part of the country, though, or I say my part of the country, my neck of the woods here in Arkansas, it's hard to catch largemouth scoping them with a drop shot or anything like that. It's one of them deals where you've got to target them with a jerk bait and things like that. It's not I don't catch them as good live scoping with drop shots and Ed rigs and stuff like that. It's mainly a jerk bait, an A rig, something like that. In the wintertime, that's when the live scope plays a major role on largemouth around here.
Well, let me ask you this. I hear discussions from a lot of the pros I talk to and a lot of the people that are involved with Garmin and a lot of that kind of stuff. How much do you believe, or how long will it take before these fish get kind of act? They are going to know, hey, there's something by me here that's not natural. The pinging, that kind of stuff. And I know when the guys were out in South Carolina or in South Dakota for the bass side, they talked about these fish just going and settling on the bottom whenever they'd come by them with live scope or something like that, because of the so much walleye traffic. Those
Yeah.
guys are out there scoping all the time for walleye, and it seemed like they were getting a little shy of it. Do you think that can still be a possibility?
I've already seen major effects as far as the live scoping. Uh, I started noticing it big time with side scan uh, after I started really catching them out deep out of brush piles and out over stuff with an A rig.
Mm-hmm.
Guys got to where they would idle over a brush pile and they drop a buoy marker in it, and then they would have an idea of where to throw with their A rig. You knew where to throw to keep from hanging the brush. So I started noticing it with that big time, and now with live scope, I'm noticing that these fish hear us run into these places within 50 yards, and you just immediately throw the trolling motor in and you start scanning looking for that brush, and then you throw to it, and you literally see the fish already swimming out of the brush. They're already leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten to a point where yes, I'm seeing it. They are associating, I guess, hearing the noise of a boat running up there and then all of a sudden just shutting down. Uh, they're starting to associate that with things because now you don't really have to idle over a spot before you fish it. You run up there, you stop 100 to 200 foot short of it, and you just start looking with the scope until you see what you're looking to throw at, and then you throw. Uh, so I've started sneaking in on them a lot. It's one of them deals where I stop usually about 400 or 500 feet short, and I sneak in on them because I'm seeing it starting to really affect them. But look, they evolve to everything we do. I mean, I've seen it in everything. It goes back as far as the A rig, the Mega Bass jerk bait, some of the stuff that came out, the Bastric swim bait. Some of those things that come out when they first came out, you were like, oh my gosh, this is an absolute game changer. I mean, you could tell it was like you were using live bait. We've seen them evolve to all of that. And they're going to evolve to live scope just like they have anything else. I mean, it's gotten to where it's getting really hard to catch bass around here on a drop shot now. I mean, it's getting hard. They just won't even hardly bite it anymore.
Well, you've got the basket line shy. We give fish way too much credit for being smart.
Mm-hmm.
Their behavior modified more than anything else. They follow the bait. They do those kind of things. They got the brain about that big, the size of a pea. So I always say, when you can't catch them, that means they're smarter than you, and they've got a brain that big, and we got a big brain, right? But They get line shy, they get bait shy, they get noise shy, rattle bait, some of that kind of stuff. When you're fishing against the best in the world, which is who you're fishing against now, is that an advantage to go silent a little bit once in a while when you're doing this? Like you say, you snuck up on them with their live scope. Are you going to do the same thing with bait selection? I know Hardcore Missouri's got a ton of that kind of stuff out there, and I'm sure you're helping develop some of that stuff for them in the future too.
Yeah, it's one of them things where I don't feel like bass are so much. I use the term educated or making them smarter. Uh, I think it's more instinctual. I think their instincts are absolutely amazing. Instinctually, a bass is a lot brighter than we give them credit for. I don't think they actually think stuff through. I just think that they react by instincts. And so many times when you see 8 or 10 of them, if you throw out there and one of them doesn't just burn to it to eat it, it seems like even if there was 2 or 3 in the pack that wanted to, if the first one that makes a movement to it doesn't go ahead and go get it, the ones that wanted to aren't going to bite it either. It's what I'm seeing. It's one of them deals like, hey, Joe didn't eat it, so now I'm not either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point.
I'm seeing that a lot. Now, as far as sneaking up on them with live scope and stuff, I do that. Now, a lot of these places that we go on the national tournament trail, I don't feel like the fish maybe are as instinctually as smart maybe. because it's still really easy to catch them in Florida and Texas using a live scope. It's about everywhere I go. I think it's really just Arkansas. It seems like that it's getting tough, honestly.
What is it
Um,
clear? How much is clear water play? See, you got, in my part of the country, I live in Illinois. We
yep.
have clear water, but it's 4 feet. You guys have clear water where you can read a beer can on the bottom in 20 in some
Yeah.
lakes. In some
It-
lakes, does that make a difference to you?
Uh, it does. It just seems like the fish feed more by sight in that clear water, so you really have to be throwing something that looks like what they want. Color is a much bigger factor in that, in my opinion, when the water's that clear. But the thing about the live scope for me, as far as turning it off and things, I've gotten to a point on it where I'm pretty good at telling you what size the fish is and what it is exactly I'm looking at. That it's almost like a guy that just goes down the bank flipping or punching grass or mats or whatever. I've started looking at it that way, that the more fish I can put it in front of and the quicker I can put it in front of them, the higher chances are of me getting bit and the more bites I'm going to get in a day. It's kind of the same way with those guys that flip. The quicker they can get it in and out of a hole, the more bites they're going to get in a day, the quicker they're going to put it in front of one that is ready to bite. So that's kind of the way I've started approaching that. Is I'm just trying to put it in front of as many fish as possible. And I've gotten to the point where I might put it in front of 100 to get two to bite. But it's just going through them as quickly as possible, And then there's some lakes you pull up, you put it in front of 100, you're gonna catch 50 of them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But the water clarity thing, is that I always look for the clearest end of every body of water. I just feel like those are the least pressured fish because it's more intimidating to fish for those. I feel like them lower end of the lake, closer to the dam, clearest water. Those fish are the hardest to catch, but when you figure out what they're wanting, what they're really keyed in on, they're the easiest fish to catch. So that's where I always start, and that's what I'm the most used to. That's and with a spinning rod, I mean, I'm just obsessed with doing that. So that's where I always start at every body of water.
Let's just give a little lesson here. All right, we got people probably watching this that know about live scope, read about it, some of that kind of stuff. If you were going to tell, say, a high school, college angler starting out, you run Blazer, right? Is that the boat you run?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I want you to talk about that a little bit if we get time here too. The big thing is you got a kid that's going to go out. Mom and dad's probably fitting the bill on a lot of these cases, right?
Uh huh.
So, and they may not be. Kid may be mowing grass, whatever. What would you tell a young man or a young lady that, hey, you're getting ready to start this, you're serious about it, you're passionate about it? What equipment would you tell them is absolutely mandatory on the front of that boat for you, or for them?
Yeah, I mean, well, they better have forward-facing sonar. That's a given, and the only reason it's such a big factor is because if you don't have it, you're already basically way behind the eight ball. I mean, it'd be like starting at 12 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
If the guys you're fishing against got it. Uh, so I mean that's the number one deal. You can make do with one graph in the back. You really can. You really need two up front. You can make do with one in the back, but you got to have two up front. You need one for mapping, and you need one for live scope. Uh, that's where I spend most of my time anymore is up at the front. I don't idle around as much as I used to. I mean, if I'm strictly searching for brush piles or strictly searching for uh, a boulder like vertical cover, something that I can see a long ways off with side scan, then I'm idling. But when I'm straight up just searching drops and grass edges and things of that nature, I'm live scoping. I mean, I might not even have a rod in my hand. I mean, my rods might stay buckled for an hour sometimes on my front deck, but I'm sitting there with my arms crossed and I'm looking. Because you're going to see them if you get around them more than likely, or at least see the types of cover that you need to see uh, to look for elsewhere that you've been catching fish on. Like if I pull up on a spot and I've had bites off a certain type of cover out on a point, say a certain type of chunk rock or a certain type of drop, I'm searching for that same type of cover on another place. Whether I'm seeing the fish when I find that or not, at least I know that I am getting bit off that type of cover, and so I'm
Right.
sometimes just searching for that type of cover. But you've got to have that up there, 100%.
Well, you're talking about a pretty significant investment. You got a boat,
Yeah.
you got something to pull it, and you got another $3,000 to $6,000 worth of graphs on the front of your boat. Then you got a trolling motor. I'm trying to direct the best I can. I'm trying to direct how can a guy get in it most economically. Live scope. That's okay. So you said that's a mandatory.
In
Trolling
my
motor.
opinion, you got to have it.
Okay. Okay. Without what's the next thing on a trolling motor? Tell me about what you're using for a trolling motor.
I'm using the Garmin Force, and I'm telling you, this was my first year using it, and I could not have been more impressed. I actually went out today with my neighbor, and he's got a different brand on his uh, that I ran for 3 years, and I'm like, whoa, huge difference. I could not have been more pleased with the Garmin Force this year. It was unbelievable. And then after going back and using the old one today, I'm even more impressed.
Well, it's brushless, right? That trolling motor is brushless, so it's quiet.
Yep, and it no wires or cables or any of that. It's all Bluetooth, which seems like it'd be a whole lot easier for something to go wrong. But I mean, I don't know if I've missed probably 20 days since January 1st in mine, and I have never had mine even looked at, not one time. It's been completely flawlessly on the water and just no issues with it all. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, if a guy doesn't want to spend the money for live scope, uh, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, we all started without it. Heck, I can remember my dad. He had two flashers. He had a flasher up front. And he had a flasher in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we used a 1 ounce spoon to tell us how deep we were. We'd pull up on a point and we'd drop it under the boat and we'd count how many seconds it took to get to the bottom. And usually we wanted it to be about an 8 to a 12 count. That's when we knew we were in the depth we wanted to be. Then we took a 1 ounce Carolina rig and threw it out there for 8 or 10 casts to see what the bottom felt like, or until we got a bite, and then we'd switch to something else. And so, I mean, I grew up learning how to triangulate stuff to landmarks. I still do that because you never know. Even the couple stretches I found on the St. Lawrence I ended up winning off of, I had those fish landmarked too, because you never know when you're going to catch a wave wrong on the way down, or you're going to have some kind of issue and your graphs aren't going to power up. So you better know where you need to be. I mean, you can't get down there and be hit with something that you're not prepared for. So I prepare everything. I take a picture with my phone when I find a big group of fish. I take a picture with my phone at the bank with two markings of some sort. So if something ever happens like that, I know I can still at least get close enough to them fish. I can still catch a few of them. So they're you don't have to have all that stuff. It just if it's a guy that's going to get serious into it, I feel like it's a necessity.
You'll get a kick out of this. The way we used to have before flashers, we use a length of cord with a milk jug and a weight.
Yeah.
And we'd let them float on a new body of water in particular. We let them float, and if it was 12 foot and it stopped, you knew right there where that jug stopped, it was 12 feet, and that's how you did it. Then, of course, flashers came along, and they're a little bit of higher speed transducer than what, a lot of the graphs we have today won't keep up. You'll lose bottom sometimes. You're not doing that with live scope, but you're doing that when you're running. So having those flashers was big. Larry Nixon, your dad, a lot of those guys could tell you everything about the bottom, everything about the fish were there because of that flasher. They were really, really good with it. David Fritz is another one. So now you guys are taking this to the next level with scoping. And I love it. I sit here every day and all I do is just sit here and watch and listen and read and do the things that I think that our readers, in my business that want to know more about it. But you can't, I always look at this kind of different. I want your input on this. I don't think you can learn it all. I really don't think you can learn it all. Do you?
Mm-mm. No, I don't. I mean, you can learn it better than 99% of the guys you're fishing against, but there's always going to be more to learn. I'm a firm believer in that saying: the day you quit learning, you need to quit doing whatever you're doing. I mean, every day I go on the water, I'm learning something different.
Right.
I mean, it may be very minute, but some days it's big, just huge things. And no, I just don't think we'll ever learn it all, because once you get to the point where you've really kind of figured it out, the fish change.
Yeah, right.
So they evolve to something more.
Like I told you a minute ago, I wanted to talk about Blazer. Blazer seems to be everywhere on social media now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've been running one for a couple of years now?
this was my third year with them. Yep.
Third year. Tell me little bit about how you got engaged with them. What enamors you about the boat? I know it's a good wide boat, stable platform, but tell me your opinion of it.
Yeah, my favorite thing about the boat is the front deck. I mean, there's so much to love about a Blazer, but I love a huge front deck, and that Joker's got it. I've had four of them. I've had three 650s, and I had one 625. In 2019, I ran a 625 before I got back out on tour, and I love the 625 too. I don't feel like the deck was much smaller on the 625. I think it seemed like you lost more of that length in the back, not the front. They didn't take any away from the front. It was more from the back. Uh, but the front deck, the storage up there is endless. I mean, I at the St. Lawrence had to take a lot of stuff out of the front deck of my boat because I didn't realize how much storage there was up there, and it had gotten to the point where it was just ridiculous. I had to have had 1,000 pounds up there. I'm just telling you, I had like 30 something boxes up there full of stuff because there's so much room up there. You don't realize that.
Right.
Okay, I was at the last tournament. I had 2 boxes of jerk baits in here, a couple boxes of traps, and then you roll up the next tournament and you got to throw some jigs or frogs in there. And before you know it, you've never taken any of that other stuff out because you've got plenty of room to keep it in there in case you might need it. Uh, I've been carrying my 10-inch worms in the boat with me ever since we were at Gunnersville. And I finally got up to St. Lawrence. I'm like, dude, you don't even need none of this stuff. You got to get this out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And I still was running 69 to 70, wide open with all of that junk in there.
You don't
And
realize how much it weighs. You really don't. I think a lot. If there's a spot, people put crap in it, right?
yeah,
And what ends
exactly.
up happening? What ends up happening is you get smarter. Now, you using a modular setup at all? How are you? Or do you have your compartments by hard baits, soft baits, whatever? How are you organizing your tackle?
Well, if you are to step up on the front deck of a Blazer, okay, I stand up from the seat and I go to walk up on the front deck. You got your first ice chest right there that you would step on to step on up onto the front deck. That very first box, which is the biggest box. Well, I don't. No, it's not. It's the next box is the biggest, but that front box is. They're all so big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I open that front one, that's where I keep all my hard baits, my traps, my crankbaits, my jerk baits, uh, and I keep my weights in that one too, and like my terminal tackle. That's where I keep it. And then the next one is where I keep all my plastics because I've got a lot more plastics that I keep in the boat with me than I do hard baits usually. I mean, a guy rolls up to the lake, you don't need but 10 or 12 jerk baits, in a box. And then if they're really biting it, you can go back to the truck and come back out the next day with 8 or 10 more, So, but I keep a lot of plastics in my boat. And in my opinion, they weigh a whole lot more than hard baits. So,
They do.
uh, the next box is the biggest one, which would be actually the front box, the one closest to the trolling motor. That's the one I keep all my plastics in. And to the right, the secondary rod box, that's where I keep all my line. I keep a first aid kit in there, spare prop. Um, I keep some buzz baits in there, frogs. Um Gosh, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I've got a huge box of nothing but braid, a huge box of nothing but fluorocarbon, and a huge box with nothing but mono. Uh, so you see where I'm going with it? And
Yeah,
then I got
yeah,
my rod box that's got like 60 rods and reels in it at all time. Well, probably about 45 really, but you could fit 60 or 65 in there no problem. You don't need that many. Um, so when I got up there at St. Lawrence getting ready to take off that first morning and that my off day, I was like, okay, we got to clean some of this junk out of here.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
way too much stuff. And
Do you carry any exotics? Do you carry like old salt craws or hail worms? I mean, is there things that you would say, okay, I got all this new stuff. I got this Yozuri, I got hardcore, I got, all the things that you're talking about bringing along. Is there any old school stuff you're bringing with you?
I don't nothing, and I mean I've got it all at a fingertips grasp too. I mean I go dead. He's got old wing worms, and I
Big
mean
wings?
he's got the all the ringworms with the fire tails, and oh my gosh, he's got so much stuff, and he's tried to give it to me and all that. I used to be the guy that really looked into that type of stuff. We did a lot of night fishing when I was growing up. And I've seen nights where you could literally catch 100 on a black worm with blue flake, but you might only catch 10 if you were throwing a black worm with red flake or gold flake. It had to be black with blue flake. And I've seen it vice versa. I've seen it where uh, you could kill them on a strawberry colored worm with gold flake, but they would not bite the one with silver flake in it, the strawberry worm with silver flake.
Weird.
And so I've seen it where you could catch a ton on a quarter-ounce slip sinker, but you couldn't catch any with a 5/16, or they wouldn't bite a guy that was using green colored line versus a guy that was using clear colored line. So growing up, seeing a lot of that stuff, it really started getting in my head because I do know how much of a difference it makes. But I finally got to a point, probably when I was about 24, when I was fishing professionally. I just went to the stuff that was the most consistent for me on a daily basis, that I consistently got bid on day in and day out. And I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I ain't going to be the guy that's going to have 12 different brands of brush hogs in my boat and every color it's made in. I'm telling you, when I roll up to a lake, it's either watermelon candy or it's black and blue. If they want June bug, I'll keep some June bug. But if they want green pumpkin purple versus green pumpkin green, well, they ain't bought my green pumpkin green then. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
I can't be thinking of all that on the water. You've got to find the fish that are willing to bite what you're throwing. And so I've got the two or three colors I like in every plastic. I've got the two or three colors I like in every jerk bait or crankbait or rattle trap or top water. It's like top water. I'm either throwing black or I'm throwing bone or I'm throwing clear. If they want one with chartreuse back or whatever, well, they can buy somebody else's.
Yeah.
I just, a square bill, it's black and chartreuse, citrus shad, or it's red. That's it, or more of a natural gizzard shad color. Um, I'm just not going to go through a million different colors trying to find the perfect one because, man, it really starts bothering with you when you do see it really starting to make a difference, like I did back when I was younger. And it just messes with you big time out there on the water, trying to think, well, I got to throw this, got to throw that, and
Right.
I just tell guys, man, get with what works for you and stick with it. Find the ones that bot what you're doing because they're out there.
It's funny. I did a radio for 100 years. This is kind of a throwback for me, getting back to do
Hmm.
this again on TV. And now we got Zoom and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I have a couple of radio interviews with your dad.
Uh huh.
And this is a long time ago. I'm talking about a long time ago. And then I started preparing as I saw you doing well and watching you as your career developed and that kind of stuff with the Ozurian hardcore in particular. I talked to a guy named Chris Bishop,
Hmm.
who happens to be a client of mine. He said, watch this kid. He said it to me. This is 3-4 years ago. Watch this kid, Brownie. Watch this kid. I said, well, I know him. I know who he is. He said, no, you watch him. He's gonna be a world beater. And I'll be doggone $200,000 later, you're a world beater. And that is an impressive thing that somebody had the vision, that had the confidence in you as a sponsor, number one, but as a good guy on top of that, to jump in the middle of this with you. And
Hmm.
he still, I can tell you right now, if I were to call him right now and say I'm talking to you, he would just be gloating. That's the kind of people that's who you've surrounded yourself with.
Yeah.
And you've been through the school of hard knocks. I know you have, and all of us have at some model or form. It's a risk reward thing, Spencer. It really is. The risk you took, all the stuff you went through, and now to get the reward, it's got to be double good. It's got to feel so much better because you know how hard it is. When you were going through all the stuff you went through. Now, guess what? You're in a BPT. You're fishing with the world's greatest anglers. You're going to be on TV all the time. You're going to have, you got people lining up that want to have something to do with you. And I think that's a compliment to you. And that's stick-to-itiveness in my book.
Well, uh, I have, and I've been really, when I was out here the first 3 years, and I was young and dumb, and you're more than most of the time you don't like something, you speak up about it, whatnot. But as I've come back, back then you're willing to go to anybody that was willing to give you a free rod and reel, whatever. It was different back then for me. But now I have surrounded myself in those 4 years I took off, surrounded myself with really good people, and I've made sure I've done it right this second time around. Because I figure, how many times you going to get the shot to live your dream? You only get so many shots to do it. So at some point, you're eventually just going to run out of chances. And so I didn't want to blow my second shot, which I felt like was my first real shot, you know. And so I couldn't be happier with the companies that I'm partnered with now. The Blazer Boats, Hardcore Yozuri, Phoenix Rods, uh, and yeah, I mean, I, since I qualified for BPT, I've had other companies come to me and ask, this and that, and man, I've just got to be loyal to the ones that's
Good
been
for you.
loyal to me,
Good for
just
you.
because of the fact, uh, it's one of them things like, would I have won this championship or even qualify for BPT if it wasn't for them? You know what I mean? Uh, because I don't know if I could have survived this long. It's there's a lot more goes into this sport than people on the outside see. I mean, they just see that $10,000 when you finish 45th or whatever. But I just spent six to get in it, and I've spent two in truck and boat gas, and probably another, five, 600 in tackle, and another 5 or 600 in food. So at the end of the tournament, I might be leaving with $1,000.
Right.
Well, how am I going to pay my next 6,000 entry fee? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So you can't do it without help. You can't do it without sponsors, people to believe in you 110%. And to know that not only have I accomplished something that was my dream, knowing that I've made people proud that was willing to go into the fire to see me accomplish that is a big deal for me as well. That's the part that makes it double the sweetness,
Well,
you
you're
know.
approaching $1 million worth of winnings, and I mean that's scary to think about that. You just talked about a lot of things that take away from that $1 million,
Yeah.
but now you've got this thing. Your best work's kind of in front of you. You've proven yourself. You know what you can do. You know what you can do with a rod and reel, and you're learning your craft better each and every day. Your best work's in front of you, and you've almost won $1 million already. So that's kind of a cool deal. I mean, you got to be excited about the future for you.
Yeah, I'm excited because, I mean, I've done that on an average of 7 tournaments a year, and I'm excited that now I'm going to get to turn that into about 16. So I feel like it's taken me to accomplish in, uh, let's just say 14 years total. Uh, Now let's say six, three, that's nine, another three. What's taken me 10 to 12 years to accomplish, that's including my coangler years, I feel like now I can accomplish that in three. Not only because I feel like I've grown so much as a fisherman, but I'm also going to get to fish double, even triple the tournaments.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's very exciting.
It's
Uh,
exciting to watch it. Honestly, it's exciting to watch it. Do you
yeah,
fish at home much? Any more tournaments at home?
I still fish the BFLs that come around, just because to me, I mean, I fish as hard for $200. I do 200,000. I don't fish the night tournaments anymore. I don't. I like to fish stuff. Little. Just to throw together weekend tournament that a buddy or something I throw together with my brother or my dad. Uh, it's just about competing out there to me. It's not. It ain't got nothing to do with the money or any of that. I mean, the trophies, obviously. I've still got my eyes set on trophy. I got to get a trophy. That belt is nice, but I'm ready to get a trophy. You know what I
That
mean?
I saw a couple pictures of you with that belt. That's a
Yeah.
big sucker. How much does it weigh?
I'm gonna say probably 10, 12 pounds, probably.
Oh, it's only that much. It looks like it weighs like 50.
Yeah, no, I'd say it's probably about 12 pounds. It may
Where are
be
you
a
gonna
little
wear
bit
that? You got
more.
to go out to eat. You gonna wear that when you go out to
No,
eat with your
I
wife?
actually I cooked a big mess of crappie the other night and had my mom and dad over, and I put it on for the first time. My dad's like, "Oh, you got to put it on," so I put
Yeah,
it on, and we snapped a couple
I
pictures.
can hear
But
your dad saying that.
yeah,
It's funny. Fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. All right, I'm just going to tell
uh
you
huh,
that. Your face, the way you look in your face, and everything else, and the times I've had conversations with your dad, which is a lot. I'll be straight up with you. You'll have to ask him about it. But we used to have a lot of fun, and it was about business on the water, off the water, have fun, right? Is that kind of your makeup as well, or are you business all the time, 24 hours a day?
well, I mean, it seems like business more now
Hmm.
than before. Maybe. I mean, I tell you, I'm seeing a transfer. Of course, this is so young. since I've this win. I mean, it's so early in the stages. I mean, it's been strictly business the last week and a half, no doubt. Uh, I have a lot to learn on the business side of it. I've got to get a lot better at that. That's the side of the fishing industry I am transferring over to now. Uh, Believe me, I want to win 30, 40, 50 tournaments before I'm done.
Right.
As would anybody. I want to win every championship there is to win. I would love to win 12, 15 Angler of the Years. And I am always giving this 110%. But I've skipped out on a lot of the business side of it the last 3 years, especially. I mean, I've done what I've had to do, and I've given a little extra, but there's some things I haven't done because I have been working and chasing after this first win so
Right.
hard.
Right.
Uh, I mean, I went to New York a week early and spent time on lakes around Champlain before Champlain, so I felt super in tune with the fish in that area, so I knew I could. I felt confident going into that tournament to qualify for the Bass Pro Tour. I stayed the entire time between Champlain and the championship on the St. Lawrence, so I could just keep at it and learn more and more about smallmouth each and every day. That was a very key factor to me winning on St. Lawrence, no doubt. Uh, I've really tried to stay in tune with my fishing so I could get this first win. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, I'm not going to give up my work ethic
Right.
on the fishing side, but I am going to start now putting forth a little bit more effort and work ethic into the business side of it because you can only go so far and so long just on fishing and your skill alone. At some point, you have to really form partnerships with businesses, these companies, and do lots of shows and things so you can really see your career really start to climb and go long term. And so that's the side of it now I'm trying to really, I feel like I can dedicate a lot more time to
One
on my
lesson,
end of the
one
tournament.
lesson I can tell you after 50 years of doing this business is the fans are every bit as important as a baseball fan. You
Yep.
know, we don't do anything in fishing, and then you're going to find out your fandom just grew incrementally. All right, but that portion of it, there's going to be people that follow your career. They're going to sit here watching podcasts. They're going to be watching you on the water. And then you're going to go to the BPT and be a rookie again, right? You're going to be a rookie again.
Yeah.
You're going to go out there as a rookie, right? So every time Marty and JT talk about you, they're going to talk about you being a rookie. Well, you're not a rookie, okay? But the fans blend with that. How many guys? You remember Bo Dowden? You remember the name Bo Dowden?
I do remember that name.
Yeah, well, Ray Scott said he was an Olympic swimmer. Bo Dowden couldn't walk from here to the door in my office. It took him a week. He wasn't an Olympic swimmer, but there was a persona, right? There was a persona
Yep.
there. And there's guys, what you got to do is you got this persona from outside looking in, is you got a persona that you're a businessman. That's to me. You're going to be a businessman with a rod and reel, and you're going to be a businessman other than that. And I think I applaud that more than anything to see a young man like you that has got that first win but's not satisfied. Because that if you get satisfied, it's over. It really
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
I think it's just the coolest thing ever to watch this happen for you. And despite, I mean, there is a lot of loyalty with me with family. Scott Martin, he went back to the bass side because he wanted to be able to win a classic for his dad. Well, you just did that on this side. You did it on the
Hmm.
MLF side. That's just cool as heck. Because I mean, there's a lot of things like that. One question here, one final deal I'm going to ask you. You're going to be on the MLF side, and there's always in the back of your mind the Bassmaster Classic. I'm sure because of your dad, right?
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, he got close. He got second a couple of times, or close to second. Had a chance to win it a couple of times. So, is that ever entered into your head way back here? And once I get to where I want to get to, maybe I go try to hit that ball. Is that something you thought of?
Well, I am super loyal to MLF. I love that trail. I've always been over there, um, and I will probably always fish their tournament trail at some point in the year, whether it be a Toyota Series or a Toyota Series like Central or Northern or whatever. I do plan on being with MLF for a long time, but there is one thing I can promise you, and that is Spencer Sheffield will fish a Bassmasters Classic one day. That will happen.
Yep.
As long as I'm alive, one day I will fish a classic. Just because, how can you not?
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? How can you not?
I think
Uh,
people like myself, I'm loyal to the sport. I want MLF to be successful. I want Bass to be
yeah,
successful. I want
I
NPFL to
have
be
no
successful.
favorites at all.
Me neither.
Uh,
That's where I am.
I wouldn't have any issue fishing bass someday, but I do want to fish a classic, and I will fish a classic one day, 100%. But right now, the Bass Pro Tour is my main goal. My looking forward, that's all I see. BPT, BPT, BPT.
Mhm.
Just because I love that format, I like their fan base. I like the group of fishermen that are over there,
Mhm.
and I love
Well,
the
you
people
fished
at
some events
MLF.
with them, right? You fished several events with them. You
I
fished.
fished two. I did fish two Bass Pro Tour events last year. I fished Rayburn and Harris Chain,
Hmm.
and
And did
loved it.
well. And did well.
Yeah, I did well. I finished 11th in both of them.
Hmm.
But I absolutely loved it. It was a totally different atmosphere. It was amazing, you know. But I love MLF. I mean, that's my guys. I mean, that's my trail. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna fish a classic one day,
Well,
100%.
it's funny. I've been doing this a little over 40 years, something, right? Where to Fish now, and Bass Fan before that, and Bassmaster before that, and all that kind of stuff. I'm as much of a fan as anybody is. The guys that are fishing the BPT now, I'm a fan of theirs, and most of them are younger than I am. Most of them are
Hmm.
younger. But I look at the personality, number one. I look at how they treat other people, number two, and I really look at the fishing ability, probably third, because I think that we have an obligation to the fan first to make sure that they're enjoying what we're doing. And all the bickering and backbiting and stuff that we hear about, you hear about it, I hear about it, everybody hears about it, really kind of goes away from me. It's kind of like smoke. It's there for a minute, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
And I think, as you said, you're very comfortable in your skin right now. I'm telling you right now, I believe the future looks really, really good for you. And you stick to your guns, you're going to be just fine. How's the T7? How you like the T7 floor carpet? I meant to ask about that.
I wish I'd have had it 10 years ago. I really do. I
What,
mean, now
what
I've got more.
differentiates it? What differentiates it for you?
It's very limp, if that makes sense. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to coil up on you. You don't have to use any kind of line spray or anything to make it cast smoother, further, any of that. Very abrasive resistant, or abrasion resistant, however you want to say it. Just strong, low stretch. And I feel like it's dang near invisible to the fish. I mean, I can't see it in the water, but it's just an all around excellent, excellent line. This is my thing about T7. Okay, I use it on everything: chatterbait, crankbait, whatever. Everything but a top water, obviously, because fluorocarbon sinks. But I use it on everything. Everything I throw is spoiled with T7, unless it's braid. And if it's braid, I'm using it as a Yozuri Super Braid. But unless it's braid, it's Yozuri T7 always. Um, but on my spinning rods, obviously I use braid to fluorocarbon leader. Well, all the other brands, not all of them, I'm not going to sit here and say all of them because they don't all. Uh, but a lot of the other brands I used, it seemed like on like a drop shot that 12, 10 to 15 foot leader of fluorocarbon you were using with a drop shot or even an Ed rigging it seemed to really twist bad. You know what I mean? I'm sure you've seen that. Like that leader twists so bad. Well, the T7 doesn't twist on me really bad at all, if
Mm-hmm.
any. Um, that was really frustrating with me before I was using other brands, and after a fish or two, my dang leader would be so twisted up. I mean, 2, 3 foot up above the hook, my line's just twisted around itself, and then when you get it untwisted, it's all curled up. Well, I feel like that causes more of a reflection from the sun in the water, so the fish is going to see your line better. The T7 stays really straight, very limp. I love it. I mean, I can honestly say I've never broke off a fish using T7 that was I felt like the line's fault. I've broke off fish during practice or whatever, or fun fishing, because I literally just neglect to retie because I want to see how many fish I can catch before it finally gives up.
Mm-hmm.
And but as far as in competition, I've never broke a fish off.
I want to give you one more chance to shout out to anybody we didn't talk about. I think that's important for your advertisers and sponsors and people you work with. Is there anybody we missed that you want to give a shout out to?
We covered them pretty good. I mean, the Yozuri, I mean, those guys believed in me from day one. I've started using Monster Marine lithium batteries. The year before, no, last year was my first year using them, and could not be happier with my battery brand. They all got Bluetooth. You can connect to the Bluetooth that's internal inside the battery to your phone. See exactly how they're charging, how quick they're charging. Shows you all the specs on it. Uh, the Blazer has been awesome. That boat is it's such a sporty boat. I love driving that thing. I mean, turn it on a dime, gets up to speed very quick, handles big water so incredibly well. The live wells, they changed their oxygenator system in it this year. They're doing their own thing with their live well oxygenating system. The Blazer is this year, and it's unreal. I've not lost a fish yet in the last 3 years running my Blazer. Uh, that stuff like that's just really crucial, especially in these smallmouth events. Could you imagine, like at say St. Lawrence River, I'd had three dead fish, or I mean, just two dead fish, and I don't win that tournament. That's
Right.
critical. Uh, so, the companies that I'm with now are the ones I've got the most confidence in. That's why I'm with them, and their product has not let me down yet. And so I couldn't be happier. Garmin, I mean, awesome. Their mapping is excellent. I had multiple guys, even one of the guys that went out with me after the tournament when we were doing day 5. He said, "Man, your mapping over on this Canadian side is incredible." He said, "Nobody else was showing stuff like this." So hats off to Garmin. Uh, their mapping, the live scope, all of that. Phoenix, I've been using Phoenix rods for like 8 years now. They've been absolutely excellent. Uh, just just all around great companies I'm associated with.
Well, do me one more favor. I'm going to pass this back to Ricky, but do me one more favor. Tell your mom and dad I said hello and good luck. Look up the BPT this year. I'll be watching. You can rest assured of that.
Thank you. Looking forward
Ricky,
to
back to
it.
you.
And so Spencer, hold on a minute, Terry. Don't go anywhere. So Spencer, I got to say one thing about Spencer. I really enjoy watching the show, but I will tell you, he's a man of his word. I don't know that many of those top 10 would have been men of their words when they won that St. Lawrence tournament. But Spencer committed to take a swim after if he won, and he absolutely go watch the video. It's on the MLF Instagram page. But yeah, Spencer, you're a man of your word. I enjoy working with you, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. We kept you on here longer than I said we would. A lot of great information. You'll be able to watch this on YouTube, watch it on Bass 365, all the social media outlets. It'll all be there. If you haven't downloaded the Bass 365 app, go ahead and do that. Spencer, I'm going to let you go right now. Terry, I need you for a minute. Well, not quite yet. We did have another special guest tonight that just kind of showed up. You know how a stray dog sometimes shows up at your house?
I saw him walking around.
I had one show up tonight, and here he is.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, definitely
That's Cody
get
Meyer.
close to Ricky
Yeah, we're kind
to
of
get in this video.
Cody, you're a long way from home, brother.
Hey,
You're a long way from home.
hey, I'm just a potato farmer from Idaho. Spencer,
Right.
you're the man. Congratulations. I had to show up to Ricky's house, and he goes, "Get in here. We're going to do this real quick." So I don't even know what we're doing, but I'm here, and I'm really uncomfortably close to Ricky's face.
So,
You Idaho guys are doing pretty good here lately, Not too bad. A guy from Arkansas didn't do bad either.
yeah, it's Cody's gonna go fish a tournament up on Chesapeake Bay, and then head on up to Mille Lacs for the deal. So I guess I'm just a stopping point here. But
No, I want to see Ricky. I miss
Free bed, Ricky. Free bed,
free bed.
That's
Good
right.
steaks.
Positives here, but Ricky's the man.
Yep, he sure is.
we're gonna cut this thing short and head to dinner. But Spencer, again, congratulations! Can't wait to do next year on the Bass Pro Tour. we're gonna
Can't
let
wait.
you go, and I'm gonna finish up with Terry here. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right,
Thank
hey guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. We'll see you. See you, Cody.
See you,
you.
buddy.
Take care.
See you.
All right, so I figured I'd throw in a little surprise on you, Terry. This has been
This is a good surprise. I watch him catch those big spotted bass all the time. I'm sitting here, I sit in the weeds. There used to be a guy who was always in front, and now they kind of got me hiding in the weeds and the bushes and stuff. I read all day long, every day, and I'm out there looking at social media, and I'm watching these giant spots that you catch.
Yeah.
Still have the record?
No, so I had the record, and then literally, funny story. Well, not really funny, but about 2 months later, a guy came up, same California native guy, and he ended up catching an 1124. So it got broke, but it was there for a little bit at 1080. Awesome spot, still never forget.
That's giant.
And but yeah, it got broke, and then I heard of another fish around 11 pounds being caught. It was, I think, last year on the same lake, Buller's Bar, of course, in Northern California. But
Right.
what a bass, man!
What makes them get that big there?
There's a salmon, a landlocked salmon called a kokanee.
Okay.
They actually don't reproduce in that lake, so they're stocked in there. They're about 6 inches when they're put in there. In those spots, they can eat them tail first from the side. There's the bones in there are
High protein?
yeah, high protein, so minimal. And these spots, when you catch them, you can see like an age class. Like, so I grew up where you caught all of a sudden, 3-pounders. They had to be about 3 pounds to eat those kokanee. Next year, they're 4.5, and then 5.5, 6-pounders. They're literally, when you have kokanee in a reservoir like that, they're going about 1.5 pounds a year, every year. So it doesn't take an old spot to get humongous. And
they're shaped really funny too. They got that football shape. That's what they look like. That one you had when you had the record, I was like, holy crap. I'm sitting here at my desk, and I'm like, gee, Merry Christmas, look at the size of that thing.
Unbelievable. Their backs, you grab their backs, they're so thick, and they're thick down to the tail. I mean, just imagine, here's the actual tail. They come right down, and it's like, oh, tail. So truly unbelievable. There's a couple lakes that I've seen in the world that have those kokanee, huge bass. I know some smallmouth lakes as well, but the spotted bass, Northern California, I moved to Idaho about 2.5 years ago, but that's still what I love to go back to California and do.
Here's something I want to make, and I can't do this because Ricky has to, okay? I want to be able to set up a time for this show where we talk about things that aren't necessarily just tours and that kind of thing that you just talked about, because I think that'll light up a room. And you've got such a good fan following anyway. If we could talk about other species that you just actually focused on, like spots, like smallmouth, like some of that stuff, I'd love to have an opportunity. If Ricky says it's okay, that's what we'll do.
Heck yeah, we can maybe even talk a little bit about wacky worming.
Hey, let me just tell you, the guy I'm sitting next to here is got to be the worst fisherman with the wacky worm in this world. But
and drop shot. You
hey,
put that in there too.
Terry, I would love to do that. I say we do it. Like you mentioned, people are really intrigued by that stuff. It takes years to learn some of that. I've been fortunate to grow up in Northern California and get to experience this. So I've seen.
Yeah, I don't want to give trade secrets away, but I want to see the enthusiasm, like I was. I mean, I'm geared up because I think this is cool as heck. Ricky and I are we're trying to ramp this thing back up for him.
Yeah.
And when I was locked in with contract to not being able to do it, it kind of sucked because he and I've talked for 5 or 10 years about doing this podcast thing. And now I've got a new contract that says I can do what I want to do. So it works out really good. It's sort of like you can use everybody's bait and don't have to talk about the ones you're being sponsored by.
Sure.
Pretty cool. But, I'm still a wired to fish guy. I'm still wired to fish. I'm still doing what I do.
We still want to support Wired to Fish. I mean, you guys have been friends. You were friends to me
forever.
when I started in the business, and you've kind of guided and mentored me along the way. So I mean, it's I support Wired to Fish, and man, the stuff.
So Bass Fan was, I was at Bassmaster, and then I was at Bass Times, and then all the stuff that I've done in my list. Once they found out I didn't do anything, they kicked me out and I had to go somewhere else. But the thing that I think that where we're losing sometimes is when people don't realize this is a very small industry and we need to work together, right?
Yep.
So what I think is we're better as a group than we ever were as an individual. You know, the Bass Fan days, I had a blast with it. I enjoyed it. Kumar and I and Laney and all the knuckleheads, John Johnson and all the guys that are there, wonderful people. And I try to keep them as friends as well. But it's nice to be able to have a format like this where I can help Ricky, he can help me. We can talk to guys like you and make this thing go again. I mean, I've been wanting to kick this tires for a long, long time again. I did Bass Fan Radio, then I did Wired to Fish Radio. Now this is a cool technology.
Yeah.
Dude, this is the only way to do this deal. Sitting here with a camera at your desk. Though we do have to get Eastern time versus Central time square.
Yeah, we kind of messed up on that. I'm pretty sure
Like 10 minutes though.
Go back to your text. I'm pretty sure I sent you a text.
Hey, I think the real question is Ricky Botsford wearing underwear or not right now?
Really?
You don't even know. You can't even tell.
Is he wearing pants? Is he wearing pants is the question. I think he's got to be wearing pants with you sitting next to him.
I hope so, boy.
Cody, it's always a pleasure. You look great. Things look good. Now you got Chesapeake Bay, then you're going where?
So Chesapeake
Mille Lacs?
straight to Mille Lacs. Yeah.
Okay. That's up in our neck of that's where the office is in Minnesota is right fairly close to there.
Man, I'll tell you, I fished years ago. I fished Pokegama, Turtle Lake, I think it was, and something else. Man, that was an awesome.
Pokegama is right where our corporate office is.
Yeah, I remember driving by a Wired to Fish office. We fished that deal. It was a world championship with MLF.
Right.
And I remember how cool that lake was. That was an awesome place. So hopefully someday we get to go back there.
You lived in Idaho. You're living in Idaho, so I'm not for sure the psyche that goes into living in Idaho. But I know I'm as far north as I'm ever going, brother. I live in Illinois.
Yeah.
Right in the center of Illinois. I'm going the other way. I'm going south. I'm not going that way. Screw that. They don't have 2 weeks, 2 weeks of summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, Polnick, he's about 7 hours north of me. I live outside of Boise, so it's about 2,000 foot elevation, real similar to the Northern California weather we had. But
you ski?
I hear you.
Ski?
If I skied, it'd be like a big snowball going down the mountain, collecting snow.
Well, I live in the garden spot of deer, whitetail deer. Okay, and probably 10, 12 years ago, I just said no more. And I mean, you're talking about 200 field dressed, big.
Yeah. Yeah.
12 points, 14 point deer. They eat corn here all the time, and I don't do it.
Yeah,
not even exciting to me.
I know. I know. It's funny. It's funny though. I'll leave with this here. In the West Coast, people get so mad when I used to hunt. You'd be like, "Man, I shot this big 4x4," and they'd be like, "That's a dang 8-pointer, Cody."
Yeah.
12, 14 points.
It's awful good to see you, my friend. Hey, Ricky, just holler at me if you need anything. You know that.
Yeah, we'll circle back around and talk about what went right, what went wrong, and line up the next.
Did anything go wrong? I thought it was wonderful.
He brought me on the show.
Having Cody on.
I'm glad to have you on. It's great.
I think it went great. So we're gonna take care of a little commercial work here in just a second, if you can bear with me. And
sure.
We're gonna end this on a high note. Thank you, Terry. I'm looking forward to many more of these things, and I'll give you a shout. I'll give you a shout here in a little bit.
Terry, good to see you.
See you later, Cody. Be good, guys.
The Yozuri 3DB series are awesome baits. They have the Japanese quality you're used to, but at an affordable price. They're a line of baits that go from deep diving crankbaits to topwaters, suspending baits, jerk baits, pretty much any bait for any application. They'll work from Florida to up north, from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. You can find the bait for the situation you need.